Welcome back to Hot Air with me, Joshua Robert. And today we're going to get into part 2 of our manifesting journey, but manifesting within the reality that we live in, which is the planet Earth. I am a big manifester. I love it. Again, I love holding a crystal. I love lighting a candle. I love having my little journal. I have my full moon ceremonies, all that woo-woo stuff. But I'm one of those people who is like, okay, let's be real. How does this actually work? What is our brain actually doing psychologically? What happens when we actually set goals? They don't just come true because we sit on our butts doing nothing, drinking a martini. Our dreams come to fruition because we act upon them. So there is a process, a scientific process from point A, which is manifesting and writing it down, to point Z, where your goals become a reality, or the things that you dream of become a reality. There's a whole lot of alphabet letters in between A and Z. Okay. So I did part 1. We got into a little bit of the psychology behind manifesting, why manifesting can be a little bit confusing, and what Instagram and TikTok actually tells us. We're going to move right along. So if you have not listened to part 1 yet, go back, listen to part 1, and then come back to me here at part 2. So before we get into it, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Visit my website, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com, to shop my merch, submit your listener stories, and topic suggestions. And I'm under the weather today, so I'm manifesting feeling fucking better so I can, get back to the visuals. But if you saw what I look like right now, even though I might sound like my normal self, if you saw what I look like, you would be like, oh, that bitch is sick. That bitch does not feel well. I don't know what's going on, but there's no visuals today. That's kind of been happening a lot lately. Been busy, been on the go, which is probably why I'm sick. So, instead of not giving you a part 2, you're just going to have to listen to my voice and go to the Instagram if you want to see something. I'm sure I'll make some reels. So let's begin. Grab your journal. Like I said last week, grab your crystal, hold it in your hand, close your eyes, listen to the sound of my voice, and let's get fucking real about manifesting, all right? Let's hit it. H-O-T-A-I-R, hot takes therapy, no filter, say what I mean. H-O-T-A-I-R, let's be real, you're listening to Hot Air. Part 4, manifestation without action is just a really cute notebook. So this is the part where I risk upsetting both the hardcore manifestation girlies and the people who think the entire concept is absolute bullshit, because I actually think that both sides are correct, are incorrect, and both sides are kind of missing something, okay? The skeptics sometimes act like believing in your goals is embarrassing, while the manifestation world can occasionally act like taking practical action is somehow too low vibration, as if sending an email is spiritually inferior to staring at a candle. And I'm sorry, but eventually somebody has to send the fucking email. You can write, I'm a successful entrepreneur in your journal 55 times every single day, and you can put a photo of a penthouse on your vision board. You can whisper affirmations into your rose quartz crystal until your neighbors file a noise complaint. But at some point, there has to be behavior. Otherwise, you're not manifesting. You are just arts and crafting, okay? And again, I say this as someone who loves the arts and crafts part. I live for going to the dollar store, getting a new piece of poster board, or in Canada we call it Bristol board, and glitter and stickers, and printing images off that align with what my dreams are, and cutting pictures out of magazines. Give me a vision board any day. I love it, okay? I love sitting there with my little coffee feeling like I'm a CEO of the universe. But your goals do not know how cute your stationery is, okay? They don't know. The universe also doesn't know. The interesting thing is that action is where manifestation can stop being abstract and start becoming a feedback loop. You decide something is possible, so you behave slightly differently. Because you behave differently, you gather new evidence. That evidence then either strengthens or challenges your original belief. And maybe you tell yourself, I could actually get a better job. So instead of doom scrolling job listings and saying, I'm underqualified for all of these, you just apply for them anyway. Then you get an interview, and now your brain has evidence that maybe you were not as underqualified as you thought. The amount of jobs that I've applied for that I never think I'm underqualified. Again, the Leo in me probably. I think I can do anything. I'm surprised I haven't applied to be like a fucking astronaut at NASA, like to be straight up with you. I think I've actually said in an episode before, I think I could probably be an astronaut. I have no desire to go to space anymore because I don't feel like dying because, space is crazy. But I do think that like sometimes we look at these job listings, sticking with that example, and people are like, oh, well, I haven't worked in this industry or that industry, or I haven't had a job that has this title, or I've never worked with this role, or I've never managed a team of 25. I've only managed a team of 4. Who the fuck cares? Apply for the jobs. Every job that I have had in the last probably decade, I've been underqualified for. I just sell the shit out of myself and I believe in myself. And if I don't know how to do something, I YouTube it or I figure it out on my own. Like literally apply for the jobs. Okay. So anyway, you apply for this job. Perhaps you get the interview, and that tells you that there's new evidence that maybe you're not as unqualified as you thought. So you prepare harder, you start speaking differently in the interview, and maybe you get the job, maybe you don't, because sometimes we don't. But either way, you have moved from fantasy into information. And information is incredibly useful because one of the worst places to live psychologically is inside a story you have never even tested. Like the story is nobody would hire me. Okay. Did nobody hire you, or have you applied to 3 jobs in 2 years because rejection feels like you're being skinned alive? Like maybe your story is nobody would pay me that much. Did somebody actually tell you that? Or have you simply never asked and you just maybe don't think you're worth it? Or what if the story is I could never start a business? Have you tested that hypothesis? Or are we citing a study conducted entirely inside of your own anxiety and fear around starting a business? We're all living in our own stories. It doesn't mean they're true. This is also where self-efficacy becomes important. And that basically means your belief in your own ability to perform the actions required to deal with a situation or accomplish a goal. Again, another example. A lot of the things I talk about on the podcast are things I'm recently learning, things I've learned in therapy, things I've read about, things I've just this week probably researched, and I don't claim to be an expert, but I feel like I can share the information. And I think that I am qualified to share the information because I am a human being who's experiencing the same points in life as people are that are listening. So like a previous version of me probably wouldn't have, had my own back. And I didn't have my own back. I would be like, nobody wants to hear me talk about how manifesting works psychology because I'm not a psychologist. But like, if I learn something because I wanted to and I understand it and it makes sense to me, why the fuck can't I share the information? Have your own back. I think I'm going to go on a lot of tangents today. But having your own back, it's not the same thing as sitting in front of a mirror and screaming like, I am unstoppable. I own the world. Like, well, you have absolutely no plan. Okay. It's much closer to like, I believe I can figure out the next step in this series of step to owning the world. And that belief matters because people who think they can influence an outcome are more likely to attempt difficult tasks. They persist when things get uncomfy and recover after setbacks. The key thing here is that confidence often grows through action. It does not grow before it. And this annoys me because I would personally prefer to receive confidence in the mail and then start whatever the task is. And unfortunately, the brain is often like, no, honey, you have to do the terrifying thing first. And then maybe I'll give you some evidence that you can survive it and you can make it. And here's a little sprinkle of confidence, which means waiting until you feel completely ready can become one of the most elegant forms of procrastination that has ever been invented. You know this. I know this. I've said it before. Just fucking start the project. Just start. I also think that there are a lot of lies that we tell ourselves about successful people. We assume that they took action because they were confident. And sometimes they became confident because they kept taking action. They did the first podcast episode where they had no idea where it was going to go and what they were going to do. They launched the product before they knew whether anybody was going to buy it. They asked for the meeting while convinced the person would say no. They went to the event alone. They submitted the manuscript. They made the call. They did something awkward and survived. Then they did something slightly harder and survived that too. And eventually, the person looking at them from the outside goes like, wow, they are so fearless. And no, They are afraid. Most of us are. They just have receipts proving that fear is not fatal, is not the end of things. And this is where I think manifestation can be genuinely useful if you use it as a way to change what you're willing to do. Let's say you're manifesting a relationship. Lovely. But if your entire romantic strategy is staying home every weekend, refusing every invitation, not using dating apps because, that's the way people date now, but they are a little bit cringe, okay? And immediately deciding that every person you meet is an emotionally unavailable human based on one weird text, we may have found the problem. You can absolutely visualize the relationship, but at some point, another human being needs access to you. If you're manifesting a career change, but you tell absolutely nobody that you want to change careers and you never build the new skill set, you never update your resume, you never apply anywhere because you want to wait for the right opportunity, then I regret to inform you that the universe is going to need a little bit of cooperation from you, okay? Even GPS cannot reroute you if you refuse to move the fucking car. One of the most practical questions you can ask after manifesting something is this: what would this goal require me to tolerate? Because we love talking about what we want, but almost every meaningful goal comes attached to an emotion we would rather not experience. Like if you want to build a business, you may have to tolerate some uncertainty. And if you want to date, you may have to tolerate rejection. Been there, done that. We all know that feeling. It's not good, but the only way to find the person is to get rejected by the people who are not your people, right? Maybe you want to create something publicly. You may have to tolerate people having opinions about it. This podcast, I've said it before, I'll say it again. People leave me the craziest comments telling me I look like I'm dying from AIDS. Like, A, who are you? Why are you talking to me? B, go get a life. At first, that used to piss me off. If I want to keep creating this and sharing it, I have to just suck it up that people are going to have some hateful things to say, right? Maybe you want to earn more money. You may have to tolerate uncomfortable conversations about money. Money is always uncomfy. Perhaps you want to become healthier. You're going to have to tolerate maybe some boredom, some inconvenience, and doing things that are hard when motivation has fully left the building. Sometimes the thing standing between you and the life you want is not the lack of knowledge. You know exactly what the next step is. You just hate how taking that next step might feel. So maybe another way of thinking about manifestation is not just what do I want to attract, but what discomfort am I willing to move through in order to make this possible? Because that question is much less glamorous, but it gives you something incredibly valuable, which is agency. You stop waiting for motivation to descend upon you like a Disney fairy godmother and start building evidence that you can act even when you feel uncertain. And action does not need to mean completely reinventing your life by next Tuesday. Tiny actions count. Sending one message counts. Researching one option counts. Saving the first $100 counts. Going to a class counts. Saying yes to one invitation counts. The goal is not to perform a dramatic transformation overnight. The goal is to begin behaving in a way that is slightly more aligned with the future that you keep saying that you want. And of course, there is another reason action matters. It gives the world a chance to respond to you. You cannot receive feedback on the things that you never launch. You cannot meet the person if you never leave the house. You cannot be recommended for the opportunity if nobody knows that you want it. You cannot discover that your idea needs changing if it remains perfectly preserved inside your pretty little head. No, let it out. Action creates information, connection, skills, luck, mistakes, and opportunities for course correction. Sometimes what people call manifestation is actually a combination of clarity, persistence, preparation, relationships, timing, and luck. And to me, that does not make it any less exciting. It makes it more empowering because now I'm vibrating at the correct frequency. I can ask a much more useful question. What can I do today that increases the probability of the thing that I want? So yes, manifest. All of this kind of does sound like I'm saying I don't believe in manifesting and just throw it out the window. This is what comes after the manifesting. So yes, manifest. Write it down. Be delusional. Believe so hard for 20 minutes or an hour. Imagine the huge life. Put those over the top goals on the page, because truly nothing is over the top. Anything is possible. I genuinely think there's value in letting your mind go somewhere bigger than your current circumstances. But when you close the notebook, you have to prove to yourself that that manifestation, it has legs. Give it one behavior, give it that phone call, give it an hour, give it that application, give it a boundary, one choice that says, I am not only hoping for this, I am participating in it. And I have full body chills right now, which means I'm on to something. The Lionsgate portal has opened, okay? Because the journal can give you direction, but it cannot walk for you. And at some point, you got to get up and you got to walk yourself. Part 5, when manifesting gets toxic. So this is where we get into the part of manifestation culture that makes me want to gently remove the crystals from someone's hand and ask them to please rejoin reality for a second. Because there is a point where something that starts as hopeful and beautiful and empowering and inspiring can become very unfair. And the problem is not believing that your thoughts matter. The problem is when that turns into believing that your thoughts explain every single thing that happens to you. Because once you start saying, like, I attracted this into my life, it can get very dark very quickly. If something incredible happens, like, amazing, right? You manifested it. But then what are we supposed to say when somebody gets sick? Like, I feel ill right now, okay? What am I supposed to say? What are we supposed to say when somebody loses their job, or when somebody is I don't know, abused, when somebody grows up in poverty, when somebody experiences racism, discrimination, war, violence, grief, or any of the approximately 8 million things human beings cannot control? Did they manifest that too? Did they not think positively enough? Was their vibration off? That is where I get off the train, okay? There is a difference between saying, like, my mindset affects some of my choices and saying my mindset controls my entire reality. Those are not the same statement. One gives you the agency, the other can give you responsibility for things that were never yours to control. And I think manifestation culture sometimes slips between those two things without even acknowledging it. Like, you hear things like, everything in your life is a reflection of your energy. And on Instagram, that sounds beautiful, okay? Because it's written over a photo of the ocean at sunset. Great. But think about what that sentence actually implies. If everything in my life is a reflection of my energy, then every terrible thing that happens to me is somehow evidence that I was energetically deficient. That is not empowerment, okay? That is blame. That's wearing a cute empowerment hat. I think the reason this idea can become so very seductive is because human beings hate uncertainty. We want cause and effect. We want the world to make sense. If I do X, I want Y to happen. If I am a good person, I want good things to happen to me. If I think positively, I want the universe to reward me. That feels safer than admitting that sometimes life is random. Sometimes systems are unfair. Sometimes timing really sucks. Sometimes somebody else makes a decision that affects you. And sometimes you can do everything right and still not get the outcome you wanted. And that is uncomfortable as hell. So I understand the idea, or I understand why the idea of I create everything in my reality can kind of feel comforting to some. It gives us the illusion that we are completely in control. But complete control is not actually available to us. And weirdly, I think accepting that can be more freeing than trying to spiritually micromanage every outcome. However, we all know someone who is a little bit woe is me, right? Who's a little bit Eeyore, who thinks everything is happening to them and everything that's negative that's happening to them is like, oh my God, of course this happened to me. Of course. I had a friend like that once upon a time. Again, not friends anymore, but they were in a constant state of, even if the things that were happening, I was like, that's not that bad, or that could be a positive thing. It was always, woe is me. Everything is terrible. And so that is definitely a mindset, a way of looking at the circumstances, a way of interpreting or digesting all of these occurrences in life, whether it's your dad being an asshole, you're getting a divorce, or you ran out of fresh milk. It's like every little thing is negative. That's just a mindset thing, right? Those people are just negative people. There's a big difference. So if you believe that you control everything, then every setback becomes a personal failure. Like, you did not get the job. Maybe you doubted too much. right? That's what you think. The relationship ended. Maybe you were operating from scarcity. The business failed. Maybe you were not aligned with your business. You are struggling financially. Maybe you have a bad money mindset. And look, sometimes mindset absolutely matters, but we have already talked about that. There is a huge difference between examining your own patterns and assuming you caused every bad outcome. When I haven't got jobs before, I've always just been like, okay, well, that wasn't meant to be for me. Like, there's something that's going to come that is going to be way more aligned with what I'm good at, what I'm passionate about, and maybe pay me more. And there has always been an opportunity, even if I've had to wait and been disappointed that maybe I didn't get some of the jobs I applied for. It always ends up working out. So I've never really been one of those people who's like, oh, of course I didn't get that job. Again, this friend who I'm no longer friends with used to put herself in positions for, promotions, more income, moving up the ladder in their industry. And I would be like, oh, great, you've got an interview. How exciting. Their response would, well, I probably won't get it, so I'm not going to get excited. And guess what? They didn't get it. But like, what if they did get excited and felt passionate about it and put that energy out there? But again, it was a person who is just a little bit of a negative Nancy. Okay. However, the whole point in this is that, you're not at fault, and it's not your responsibility if things sometimes do not go according to your plan or what you thought you wanted or the energy you were putting out there. Because sometimes when you're up for that job, the CEO of the company just hired their nephew instead, and you can't control that. And sometimes the other person had their own issues. Sometimes the economy is shit. Sometimes the market changes. Sometimes your idea just does not work. Sometimes your body does something you did not ask it to do. Like the first thing that comes to mind, like everyone who ate that contaminated lettuce, their body was doing things they didn't want to do. It's not your fault. You did not manifest the lettuce. Sometimes bad things happen because we live in a world with other people. There's biology, chance, institutions, weather, genetics, and fucking taxes. Okay? Bad things happen. I also think manifestation can become toxic when it discourages people from feeling normal human emotions. There is this weird pressure in some spiritual spaces to stay high vibe all the time. I would like to stay high all the time, but high vibe it's hard to stay there, as if sadness and anger, fear, grief, or frustration are going to scare away all of your blessings. So now not only are you having a shitty day, you're also worried that having a shitty day is cosmically irresponsible. But like, babe, no. You're allowed to be pissed off. That's an emotion you're allowed to feel. You're allowed to grieve and be sad. You're allowed to be scared. You're allowed to say this fucking sucks without assuming that the universe is going to hear you and cancel your future. Emotions are not manifestation crimes. They are information. And sometimes anger tells you a boundary has been crossed. Sometimes fear tells you something feels a little bit risky, but remember, fear can also be excitement. Sometimes sadness tells you that something mattered, and pretending that you do not feel those things does not make you more evolved. It just makes you emotionally constipated, unlike those people who ate the contaminated lettuce. But like, when you live in those negative feelings for too long, that's when I do believe you start inviting and experiencing more negative emotions, more negative experiences, more negative situations. So like, sure, feel the fear, feel the grief, but when you live in that place for an extended period of time, yes, I am one of those people who believes you're just welcoming in more BS. And that is kind of where I think that toxic positivity and manifestation start to like hold hands a little bit in a really annoying way. Toxic positivity is that pressure to put a positive spin on everything, which fuck, I kind of do that sometimes, but I don't think I'm toxic. I think I'm borderline, but I try to put a little silver lining on stuff too much. But even when the situation like genuinely calls for honesty or anger or support, like everything happens for a reason. I mean, I believe it does, but does it? Like maybe something's happened because somebody was an asshole, right? But like, I mean, I prefer to think of things as it happens. Everything happens for a reason, but everyone's not like me. So that's kind of why we're going here. But some people say that like this setback is just the universe redirecting you. And like, some people are going to be like, maybe, or maybe it is a setback and we can be upset about it before we turn into a motivational poster that's hanging on the wall. Not every painful experience needs to become a lesson immediately. Sometimes the healthiest thing that you can say is like, this was terrible. I did not deserve it. And I'm going to figure out what to do next. But in that, you're already manifesting the next step. You're already, taking action, which is hopefully going to propel you away from that negative experience. There can be meaning later. There can be growth later, but forcing meaning way too soon can become another way of avoiding the actual emotion and avoiding what the right next step is for you. We need to be very careful when manifestation applies to money as well, okay? Because this is where the conversation can go from motivating to kind of insulting. Telling someone to think abundantly can be very useful if what you mean is notice whether fear is causing you to undervalue yourself or avoid opportunities. It is not useful if somebody is choosing between rent and groceries and you're telling them that their problem is a limiting belief. We cannot mindset our way out of structural inequality. We cannot vision board our way out of every economic reality. Some people genuinely have more access, more safety nets, more connections, more capital, more time, more childcare, more education, more healthcare, and more room to take risks. And pretending those differences do not exist does not make manifestation more inspiring. It actually makes it less honest. And now I think manifestation becomes much healthier when you stop using it as an explanation and start using it as a tool. A tool does not need to explain the universe. A journal can help you clarify your goals. Visualization can help you rehearse a process, and affirmations can help you challenge thoughts that keep you frozen. Setting intentions can help you decide what matters. None of that requires you to believe that every event in your life was sent to you because of your frequency. You can believe that your thoughts influence behavior without believing that your thoughts control every external event. You can believe in hope without denying reality. You can believe in possibility without blaming yourself for every outcome. And I'm pretty sure it's been a hot minute since I read The Secret, but The Secret is very intent on reminding us that we cannot control these external events. We can control ourselves. We can control things that we put out there, experiences that we may have, opportunities that we create for ourselves, but we can't control the guy driving the car by us, the server at the restaurant, or our boss. So my personal rule is this. If a manifestation practice gives you more agency and clarity, courage, or more willingness to act, great. Keep it up. If it makes you feel ashamed or afraid of your own thoughts or responsible for things that are outside of your control, or like you have to perform happiness every second of the day or your life is going to collapse, then throw that shit in the bin, okay? Your spiritual practice should not make you scared to have a bad Tuesday. It happens to all of us. It should not convince you that grief is bad juju. It should not tell you that another person's suffering is evidence of poor thinking. And it definitely should not replace practical help when practical help is what you need. Now, I think there's a much kinder version of manifestation that says, I cannot control everything, but I can influence some things. I can decide what I want for dinner. I can decide where my attention is going to go, and I can decide how much I rehearse or practice. I can decide whether I'm going to ask for help, and I can decide whether I'm just going to keep trying at that thing. I'm allowed to change my strategy. I can learn new skills. I'm allowed to set boundaries. I can leave. I can begin again. I can prepare for opportunities. And when luck shows up, I can be more ready to use it. That is still powerful. It just does not require us to pretend that we are gods with a Pinterest board. And maybe this is the healthiest middle ground, okay? Believe deeply in your ability to shape your life without believing you are solely responsible for everything life throws at you. Like, dream big, stay hopeful, write down those ridiculous things, but also leave room for a little randomness, sometimes disappointment, and circumstances you did not choose, but then use those circumstances as data and information. Manifestation should expand your sense of possibility and not shrink your compassion, especially not for yourself. If your belief system makes you kinder to yourself and more willing to take action, stick with it. Amazing. Love that for you. And if it makes you look at somebody suffering and think, well, maybe they just attracted that. Like, okay, the Lionsgate portal is closed for you. All right, go home. Part 6, how to manifest without losing the plot. So after all of this, 2 episodes, where does that actually leave us. I don't want to spend an hour, or well, this will probably not be a whole hour, but I don't want to spend an hour talking about manifestation only to end with, well, who knows? Good luck to you all, and then send you on your way with a candle and zero instructions. Okay. I actually think there is a version of manifestation that is very useful as long as we stop treating it like a supernatural ordering system and start treating it like a combination of imagination and clarity, psychology, planning, and action. And let me remind you, I believe in the supernatural part of it. I believe there is energy out there that is listening, that we are receiving, that we are connecting with, that we don't even know about. I think if you want to be Oprah, that will always be my go-to. You can be Oprah, not her herself, but like the next version of Oprah if you really want to. But that takes planning, action, psychology, clarity, and your imagination and supernatural ordering system. Okay. You're allowed to believe in signs. You are allowed to make your vision board, write the letter to your future self, do your 8-8 ritual, put the crystals around the journal, play the music, pour the wine, whatever makes you feel connected to the version of your life that you want to create. I am not here to take that away from you, okay? I think ritual can be so fucking cool. I just want the ritual to lead somewhere for both myself and for you. So if I were creating my own manifestation practice based on everything we've talked about today, I would start with the dream and I would make it fucking enormous. No editing. Like, we're not going to say like, this is probably unrealistic. Fuck that. No pretending that you do not care about something because caring makes you vulnerable. Ask yourself what you would want if you genuinely believed you were allowed to want it. Nobody's listening. I can't hear you. Only you can hear yourself. There's nobody to judge you. What is it? No matter how big. What kind of work would you be doing? How much money would you make? Where would you live? How would your days feel? What kinds of relationships would be around you? What would you stop tolerating? What would you create? What would you try if you knew nobody was going to laugh at you? And I would make this part emotional on purpose because goals that actually mean something to you are easier to come back to when the process might get a little bit boring or hard or stale. Like saying I want to make more money is fine, but I want enough money that I can take care of my family, travel without panicking about credit card bills, and have the freedom to leave situations that are bad for me has a very different emotional weight. You are not just naming the object or the thing, you are naming what that object or thing represents. I light the candles. My friend H, who is a screenwriter and director and very successful, she bought me this manifestation candle that she got from like some spiritual witchy woo-woo woman, and I believe in it. So I lit it, or I will usually light it. I will have my crystals out. I do play crystal singing bowls on Alexa, and I will dim the lights. Sometimes I do have a glass of wine, and I just try to get into a positive, chill, woo-woo zen space. So I do that spiritual part of it. But then I would take each of my manifestations and ask, one slightly annoying question, which is, why do I want this? Because sometimes we are manifesting things that we do not even fucking want. Okay. We just think that we do. We want them because Instagram told us successful people have them. Like, I don't want the Lamborghini or the Ferrari or other cars that I don't know the names of. Like, I don't. But like, there was a point when I thought I did because it was a symbol of success. Like, we want the title, the house, the relationship, the body, the lifestyle. And then when you really pull the thread, you realize what you actually want is maybe safety or validation, freedom, belonging, respect, excitement, or just peace. And knowing that matters because there may be more than one path to the feeling that you're chasing. Maybe you are obsessed with making a certain amount of money because what you really want is freedom. Great. Now, money is one strategy for freedom, not the only definition of success. Maybe you are manifesting a relationship because you want connection, but in the meantime, you've neglected every friendship in your life while waiting for some gorgeous, emotionally available stranger to arrive and complete the picture. Sometimes the manifestation actually gets a bit bigger when you understand the need that is hiding underneath it. And that could just be a fun exercise to also get to know yourself a little bit more. And next, after we've done the manifesting, perhaps you sat there with your crystals and your candles and your wine like I do, or perhaps you made the vision board with your big, beautiful dreams. I want you to make the dream less aesthetic and more behavioral, because this is where we take the beautiful vision and we ask, what does this version of me who has this dream life, what do they actually do? Not what does he wear, or I know it's a fabulous blazer or something. Like, we've established that. Okay. What does he do? How does she spend her mornings? What conversations are they willing to have? What does she say no to? What skills does he have that I do not have yet? How do they handle money? How do they treat their body? How does she respond when something goes wrong? Does he immediately decide that the universe hates him and spend 3 days watching people pull tarot cards on TikTok? Or does he go, okay, that didn't work. What's the next move? We talk about becoming your future self all the time, and sometimes it gets turned into buying new clothes and drinking water out of a prettier glass. And I love both those things. Trust me, I think a new outfit and drinking out of a nice cup can completely change your vibe, but your future self is mostly a collection of behaviors. And if you want that life, start borrowing some of that life's decisions. And don't worry, there's more steps, okay? The next step is that we're going to make it ridiculously small. This is the part where our brains tend to throw a tantrum, because once we get excited about changing our lives, we immediately create a 18-step morning routine, a 5-year financial plan, a new diet, a new business, and somehow we're also learning Italian, like, by the weekend. Like, calm down, okay? Pick 1 or 2 actions. If your manifestation is career related, maybe your action is sending 2 pitches this week. Just start with that. If it's financial, maybe it's finally looking at your numbers and deciding what you actually want to earn. One thing that I will recommend, now I'm not a financial planner, is the Acorns app. Not sponsored by Acorns, but I use it, and I have a lot of money in there that I don't even think about. I round up every purchase. It could be 10 cents. It could be 15 cents. It goes into my Acorns account. Every Monday, a certain amount of money comes out into my investment account and into my later account. And I don't even see this money. I don't even think about it. And so sometimes I'll look at my checking account. I'll be like, damn, you're broke, bitch. You're broke. And then I will remember, I'm not broke, because I've been investing money for the last 7 years into all these accounts. Anyway, Acorns is great. So if you want to start with some financial things, like, you can put $10 every Monday into this account and it will automatically invest it for you. You don't even see it. You don't even have to think about it. You don't even have to open the app once you've created it. So if you're trying to get back on your financial game, that's where I would start, just personally. So moving on. Okay. If your goal is health related, maybe it's 3 walks and 1 appointment you've been putting off, right? Maybe you got to go to the dentist and maybe you're going to walk 3 times a week. If it's love, maybe it's saying yes to the invitation instead of deciding in advance that everyone that's going to be there is going to be obnoxious as hell. And they could be, but like, maybe you're going to meet the one. Who knows? The point is not to make the first action impressive. The point is just to make it repeatable and to just make the action happen. And then, and this is the part a lot of people skip, including myself, you need to decide what you're going to do when motivation disappears, because it will. There will be days when you feel incredibly aligned and powerful and absolutely abundant. And then there will be Wednesday at 4:17 p.m. when you hate everyone and suddenly your manifestation journal looks like propaganda and you want to start a fire with it. That is normal. You do not need to feel inspired every day for a goal to be real. This is where those if-then plans we talked about earlier become useful. I believe it was in the last episode when we talked about that. So you might not know what I'm talking about. So go listen. But if I get rejected, then I send the next pitch within 24 hours. That could be my thing, right? If I miss a workout, then I go to the next scheduled one instead of deciding the week is ruined and there's no point in me going at all. If I start spiraling and telling myself that I cannot do this, then I look at the evidence of what I have already done. Build the response before you need it, because your future tired, insecure, mildly dramatic self should not be responsible for making every decision from scratch. There are times when maybe I don't know what the theme for the pod is going to be that week, or I'm like not feeling all that inspired that week. But I know that a podcast has to come out every Tuesday, because that is the goal I set for myself. And sometimes I record these episodes on Monday afternoon because I could not find the inspiration. I didn't know what was like sparking my joy. but I have made sure that no matter what, an episode comes out every Tuesday. So, and I don't set a certain time aside. I try to, record a little bit ahead of time, but that is my non-negotiable here. Even when I'm tired, even when I'm insecure, even when I'm being mildly dramatic and I'm not feeling it, I dig deep, I sit my ass down in my pod studio, and I make it happen regardless. And I also want you to track evidence, and not just the sexy evidence, okay? Manifestation culture loves the giant moment, the dream job, the check, the relationship, the apartment, the big announcement. I love those things too. But pay attention to the smaller things that show you the process is moving forward. Maybe you just spoke up in a meeting when you normally would stay quiet. That little thing, been there, done that, feels so powerful. You asked for the rate that you actually wanted and you got it. Maybe you didn't, but you asked for it anyway. And perhaps you got rejected and you didn't collapse into a full identity crisis. Perhaps you did get the new rate you wanted, or there was some negotiation. You got a little bit more money. Celebrate that, right? You learned something. Maybe you followed through on the promise that you made to yourself, or you noticed a new opportunity, or you met someone that is going to be useful. You changed your mind about what you want, and that all counts. Sometimes progress does not look like getting the exact thing right away. Sometimes it looks like becoming someone who can handle that big thing when it arrives. And all those little things leading up to it, celebrate them, handle them, accept them because they're leading you somewhere. And leave room for the manifestation to change. And this is very important. You are allowed to want something deeply and then realize halfway through pursuing it, or maybe even after you got it, that you do not want it anymore. That is not failure. That is information. We sometimes get so insanely attached to the exact picture we created that we miss a completely better version of the life we are actually trying to build. Maybe you wanted that certain job, and what you really wanted was autonomy. Maybe you thought you wanted to move somewhere, and what you really wanted was adventure. Maybe you thought success meant being publicly recognized, and then you got a taste of public attention and went, no, thank you. Actually, everybody can fuck off. I want my privacy. Amazing. You changed your mind. Adjust your manifestation. You are not legally bound to a vision board that you made 6 months ago or even last week. Your goals can change. I think a lot of us forget that. We change so much. Friendships, we grow apart. Relationships, we grow apart. We're constantly evolving. Sometimes we grow back together. Sometimes we grow closer. Families change. Friends change. Lovers change. We're evolving all the time. Our hobbies change. I love painting, and sometimes I'm scared to try other things. I want to go take a pottery class, but then I'm but I'm not a potter. Is that what they're called? A potter? I don't even know. I'm a pothead, but maybe not a potter. But I think that we think that we need to pick one thing and it has to stay that way. Let it change. Also, maybe you used to be Republican and you think the freaking country's a shit show and now you want to be a Democrat. You're allowed to change your mind, okay? Now, I think the final piece here of all of this is gratitude, but not in the creepy, you must be grateful or the universe will take everything away from you kind of way. No, I mean the kind of gratitude that stops you from making your entire life a waiting room. This is something I have to remind myself a lot, okay? Another number. There is always another level, okay? There's always another goal, a bigger number, another thing that you could achieve. I was talking to, I think it was my boyfriend the other day about how the goalpost, my next goal, my next goal, my next goal, every month, podcast views need to go up. Every month, I need to almost revamp the content. Every month, I need to have these bigger goals, but there's always another, right? Another thing that you could achieve. If you tell yourself you're only allowed to feel successful once you reach the next milestone, congratulations, you have created a finish line that moves every time you approach it. You can want more and still enjoy what is already here. You can be ambitious and grateful at the exact same time. You can look at your life and say, I am proud of this, and I also want something bigger. Those ideas are not in conflict. Just like when I was moving into this newer redone 2-bedroom apartment with a much bigger rent from my older small 1-bedroom apartment that had no air conditioning in California. Again, I don't even know how I survived that because I'm sitting here in AC right now. But like my mom, bless her heart, was like, but you like your apartment, but it's been great for you. It's been da 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 da. And I was like, yes, but I want to level up. I want to evolve. I'm making more money now. I want to live in a place that reflects my goals in my life and like who I am now. I'm not a poor 27-year-old. I'm a less poor 37-year-old at the time when I moved in here. But like your ideas and your dreams can be big. You can be happy that you had that little apartment that you paid for yourself. That was a beautiful 1-bedroom that you made your home, but you can also want a bigger home. You can also want a house on the beach. Like you can be grateful for what you have and want more. So here's the actual hot air manifestation method, if you want to call it that, okay? Write down what you want without editing yourself. No editing yourself, okay? Just be true to you, no matter how big or how small that little dream is. Ask why you want it. Identify the beliefs that immediately tell you why you cannot have it. Decide what the version of you who creates that life actually does. Choose your 1 or 2 small actions that you can do this week. Decide how you will respond when and if things go wrong or off track, and track evidence of progress. Adjust when you learn something new, and keep some fucking perspective while you do it. Like, that's it, okay? You could have used the 8-8 portal, wonderful, but no portal is required for greatness, okay? Although if there happens to be a portal open, obviously use it, jump into it, dive into it, like portal it up, okay? I'm not an idiot. And honestly, like maybe that's where I land on manifestation after all of this. Like I love a portal. I love getting woo woo. I do not know whether writing something down sends a signal to the universe. I do not know whether Jupiter gives a shit about my career goals. I do not know whether seeing 1111 and making a wish means an angel is approving my business plan, or whether I simply like took my phone out too much and I stare at it all day. So obviously I'm going to see 1111 no matter what. Like I'm completely okay not knowing. But do I take part in those things? Do those things make me feel hopeful? Fuck yeah. I am completely okay with that because I know that sitting down and asking myself what I really want has value regardless of whether it's at 1111 or the Lionsgate portal or Jupiter eclipse something or other. Like I know that imagining a better future can give me direction. And I know that changing the way that I think can change the way that I act. And I know that action creates opportunities and feedback and confidence, and sometimes just luck. And I know that I would rather live my life believing there are things that are worth reaching for than spend all of my energy trying to look cool by pretending like I don't want anything at all. So if you manifested on 8-8, do not throw away the list. Go back maybe and read it. Pick the things that make you slightly nervous because you want it so badly. And underneath it, write down one final question. What would I do this week if I truly believed this was possible? And then do that. Not everything, just that. And maybe the universe will meet you halfway. Maybe it will not. Maybe it's waiting for you and you got to go a little further. But at least you will have started walking towards what the universe has to offer. And I think that is a hell of a lot more powerful than sitting around waiting for the stars to do all of the work. So if there's one thing I want you guys to take away from this episode, it's that manifestation can be incredibly useful without having to become magical, stressful thinking. Like getting clear on what you want matters, writing it down, visualizing, all the fun processes that we talked about. Love them. They matter. But none of that replaces action. And none of it means that you're responsible for every single thing that happens to you. We want clarity, courage, and more agency. Dream as big as you want. Make your dreams outlandish. Like, go be a pop star, honey, okay? And then ask yourself, what would Lady Gaga do this week to become Lady Gaga, okay? Then do it. Go be Lady Gaga. I will be here cheering you on. And if you enjoy this episode, make sure you're following me on Instagram and TikTok at _hotairpod. Visit my website, Hot Air with Joshua Robert, to shop my merch. Well, hotairwithjoshuarobert.com to shop my merch. Submit your listener stories and your topic suggestions. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for hanging out with me. And I hope that you manifest greatness. Go grab your crystals and a blanket and a martini and just like manifest the shit out of whatever it is that you want. Because like life is short, man. It goes by like that. And I always say, There's a lot of people that have not made it as far as we have. Like, if you're listening, you're alive. But we all know someone who probably, left us too soon and would kill to be able to sit here and manifest and dream and listen to podcasts and like go after their goals. So manifest it, jump into that portal. Jupiter, do your thing. Universe, do your thing, and take some fucking action. And with that, I will see you next Tuesday. HOTAIR, hot takes therapy, no filter. Say what I mean. HOTAIR, let's be real. You're listening to Hot Air.